Today's Jackson YMCA is the descendant of an organization that has served Jackson since 1868. The original founders of the Young Men's Christian Association may not have quoted today's core values of caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility, nor did founders quote today's mission statement of putting Christian principles into practice through programs that build a healthy spirit, mind, and body for all. But founders accomplished those goals just the same through meetings and programs in various buildings throughout downtown Jackson for over 150 years. Even before the Young Men's Christian Association first came to Jackson, the need for creating safe spaces for people to gather and socialize was apparent to founder George Williams. Williams, a farmer turned department store worker in London, wanted to establish places where young men could seek alternatives to the hazards of the streets in industrial England. So in 1844 he established the Young Men's Christian Association, also known as the YMCA. By 1851, Williams' vision had spread to the United States East Coast, and 17 years later, the YMCA reached Jackson. Local newspapers reported that the first officers of the newly formed YMCA were elected on February 4, 1868. The Young Women's Christian Association, or YWCA, was formed a few days later on February 7, 1868. By March of that year, the Y had furnished a meeting room on the second floor of the W.R.&S.C. Reynolds store in today's downtown Jackson. Among local supporters of the Young Association were William Withington, a Civil War hero and successful industrialist, and Melville McGee, a judge whose family participated in the Underground Railroad in Jackson. One of the earliest statements of the organization's mission was published in the March 1868 local paper. Founders said they were committed to, quote, a united Christian effort that set aside all denominational interests in order to alleviate the wants of the poor and the afflicted, and in order to elevate tastes, end quote. The success of this initiative was apparent 1 year later, when the Baptist Church held a service celebrating the accomplishments of the YMCA and YWCA. Achievements included establishing a free reading room, finding local boarding for young men, and finding employment for young women. The organization seemed to ebb and flow over the years, stopping and restarting at various times. In 1876, the local paper reported that a meeting was held to restart the YMCA and elect officers. By 1878, this resurrected group had established a reading room at the intersection of Mill and Liberty Streets, an area which was at the time called the Keystone Block. In addition to reporting on the organization's meetings and officers, newspapers of the 1870s shed light on the organization's social benefits, stating that the YMCA offered, quote, a safe alternative that uplifted the mental, moral, and spiritual advantage for young men who would otherwise be idle in the notorious Keystone Block, end quote. By 1880, the YMCA was having a significant impact on Jackson. It offered reading rooms in 2 different locations, and it held gospel meetings at the Michigan Central Railroad that attracted 300 to 400 people on a regular basis. In a 10-month span, the organization also circulated 15,000 papers, found employment for 21 residents, and aided over 200 families, quote, without regard to race, color, or religious sentiments, end quote. Meetings were held in various places throughout the later 1800s, including the Dwight Building, the Bennett Block, and the Smith Brothers Block, all of which were on the north side of Main Street, which today is West Michigan Avenue. The facility in the Smith Brothers Block was among the largest of the YMCA locations. Accommodations there included a 32 by 47-foot gymnasium, a 16 by 34-foot parlor, a night school room, apartments, and a bathroom. Many years later, an article in the local paper incorrectly reported that Jackson's YMCA was founded in 1896. And while it's true that the Y has stopped and started many times, a closer look at the evidence, including early newspaper reports, shows that Jackson's YMCA, YWCA, did in fact begin in 1868, making the Y a vital part of our community much longer than anyone imagined. Around 1908, the Y opened a new facility on the south side of Cortlandt Street between Mechanic and South Jackson Streets. The Sanborn Fire Insurance map of that year shows an extensive facility that included a gymnasium, office, reception rooms, classrooms, and dormitories. The YWCA met in another downtown location, but both organizations were active and successful. That is, until the Great Depression forced both to close in 1931. But both rebounded and reopened just 2 years later. Throughout the 1940s and 1950s, the Y expanded its offerings to include free swim programs, church after-school activities, basketball leagues, hobby and craft classes, just to name a few. During World War II, the local YMCA and YWCA supported our troops in many ways, including offering a site for buying war bonds and providing dormitories for returning servicemen. After an extensive fundraising campaign in the late 1950s, the YMCA built the facility at its current location on 127 West Wesley Street in 1962. Sometime in the 1970s, the YWCA merged into the Wesley Street facility, combining services under one roof. In 2014, the Jackson YMCA expanded again to include the Summit branch on 2151 Ferguson Road, a location that offers specialized classes and programs. Today, the Jackson YMCA serves men, women, and children from infants to seniors. Popular programs for active older adults include aquatic fitness, pickleball, and senior yoga. Popular programs for youth include parent-child swim classes, day camp, and after-school activities. But of course, there are many more programs and members for all ages. An enduring characteristic of the Jackson YMCA is that it has continued to be popularly used. Recently, the organization recorded about 200,000 member visits per year, with an additional 30,000 non-member visits annually, according to Shauna Tello, CEO of the Jackson YMCA. To accommodate popular demand and maintain an updated facility, by 2024, the Jackson YMCA expects to complete construction on a combination of new build and redevelopment for an expanded facility at the Wesley Street location. The changes will result in expanded services, classes, and programs, just to name a few benefits. CEO Shauna Tello describes the focus, challenges, and success of the capital campaign in this way, quote, "The Jackson's YMCA capital campaign has focused on stewardship, transparency, long-term sustainability, evolving relevance, and greater impact in the service of people in and around Jackson. We've raised more money for the YMCA capital campaign than any other Y in the state of Michigan. Despite the challenges of fundraising and operating during a pandemic, we have succeeded because we're nimble, adapting our plans, programs, and services to the needs of Jackson, and because our mission remains relevant. In serving all, our diversity is our strength. YMCA investors and those we serve understand who we are and appreciate the impact we have in our community. Nothing brings people together like the Y, and no organization will work harder to build a healthy spirit, mind, and body for all."